Hey everyone, my name's Anthony. I'm the owner of Traders Galaxy. We are a small miniature game company based in regional Queensland, Australia, and makers of BotWar miniature game, and others of course, but today I will be talking about the Trashers, which is one of the smallest factions in BotWar miniature game that you can collect, and I'll be going over a bit about this sort of mysterious race based on its inspirations for me creating the Force, and just various ways how it plays and its play style. So I hope you enjoy this video. Okay, looking at the Trashers. So the Trashers, a lot of people, when they look at BotWar, they see the Trashers, they think, oh, you know, this is immediately inspired by Junkions from Transformers or something like that. And actually, that's not entirely true. In fact, Junkions are just such a small inspiration in the Trashers faction that they really don't have much to do with it at all. The Trashers' major inspiration from a narrative perspective were dwarf slayers from Warhammer, in the sense that the Trashers take on the reason why they're called Trashers is because of the Trasher Code, which is a sort of download that a Valiant receives, is sort of like a vow of penitence. So if something happens and a Valiant causes some bad thing to happen, it can take penitence by downloading the Trasher Code directly from the one. And so when it downloads the Trasher Code actually changes its physiology and its memory banks, and pretty much changes it to almost like a completely new character, with an overwhelming desire to achieve penitence for its thing through feat of arms. So the Trashers sort of are good guys, but they're more very sort of like focused on what they believe to be their penitence. And so nearly the whole faction is nearly 100% close attack orientated, and which can actually it's one of the extreme factions when it comes to balance in BotWar. When I say extreme, it's like right on the far end of like how it works. Like it hardly has a shooting phase or a ranged attack. The forms of the Trashers, which can be construed, I guess, as a little bit like Junkions in the fact that they're sort of brownish orange colour with spikes and stuff like that. But actually that comes from the old forms of the Trashers, which are vehicles, which I do have artwork for in this book. They're all inspired by Mad Max Fury Road vehicles. So very apocalyptic, very sort of like, you know, old bits of metal like as armor on their cars, and spikes and all sorts of rust and things like that. So that's really where there's not a motorcycle in sight. Oh, actually, I think Fury's a motorcycle. But yeah, just one motorcycle in the whole faction. So you've got Chopper, who's sort of like a large truck battle fortress, and then you've got most of the other Trashers are cars, some with 6 wheels, and then I think Fury is the only motorcycle. So in fact, they don't talk TV either, just so people know. In fact, they hardly talk at all. So they're sort of like they stand as like a tribe apart, and they're very sort of tribal in the way the Trashers operate. Now, the Trashers actually are, I think, one of the smallest factions in BotWar. I think there's like, off the top of my head, 16, 17 characters maybe? I could have that wrong, as I'm just running off the top of my head without a script. So, and they actually also can form, they do have a Titan, which is called Trashosaur. And Trashosaur is formed by 5 of the characters, specific characters, forming into Trashosaur. Now, the story behind Trashosaur is that the elementals have used the bots to find their way back to the physical universe. And unfortunately for one of the elementals, the elemental of life, Terranson. Now, the elementals are all evil characters. Even the elemental of life, who is Terranson. Whilst Terranson may not be exactly like intentionally evil, it's more of a ambivalent, sort of chaotic character who is evil. So he chose some of the Trashes as his vehicle, I guess, in ignorance, mainly because of their sort of like chaotic nature. But he didn't realise that when he downloads his form into their combined form, which is called an elemental avatar, that the Trasher code would also work on him as well. So his whole consciousness is, or his code is changed as he downloads into Trashosaur to become Trashosaur. So in the same way that the Valiant's code is influenced by the Trasher code, so is Terranson's code influenced by the Trasher code. So that's why you get Trashosaur, which is sort of like the giant Mecha Godzilla type character. Very chaotic, but ultimately the Trashers are still on the good guys team. They just are not controllable at all. So the playstyle for the Trashers, I mean, they have a few army-wide special rules in this, or a couple of army-wide special rules in this, and one is that most of the Trashers can repair themselves just by spending energy. So they can actually just spend 1 energy point to repair 1 damage. So if you have spare energy, it's worth repairing some damage. So they're very difficult to destroy, Trashers. The other one is that each of the Trashers, no matter what the base size, they all count as general class. Now in BotWar 3, most of the changes between BotWar 2 and BotWar 3 have been around unit type. And so in BotWar 2, a lot of the units, whether they be vehicles or size of the robot, it didn't really matter. They all sort of had similar rules. Whereas in BotWar 3, I really wanted to differentiate between all the different types of vehicles and give advantages and disadvantages to the unit type that you have. So in BotWar 3, like general class bots, which are all monsters, they're in the same group, that come on a 50mm or a 60mm base, they actually count as general class and they get a bonus to their close attack. 40mm bases are called warrior class and they get a smaller bonus to the close attack. And then scout class, which is on a 32mm base, they just get a re-roll to their close attack. So they don't, as bots. Whereas vehicles get nothing at all. In fact, the vehicles can't even fight in close attack. But vehicles get a longer range due to their stable platform for firing. So vehicles are very much more shooty orientated. So anyway, going back to the Trashers, all of the Trasher bots, regardless of whether they're warrior class or whether they're scout class, will receive the general class bonus for close attack, which actually makes them very brutal in close combat. And their whole, I guess, strategy for them is very easy. Run forward and chop stuff. That's what they do. I guess putting it in terms for other games like 40k or something, they're the Khorne Berserkers of BotWar. They just run forward and chop stuff. So the other thing about Trashers is because they are all base Valiants, really, they all have the ram attack super ability, if you can see here. And that essentially means change into your apocalyptic battle vehicle and charge into the enemy and smash into them. So that makes them even faster, even more devastating in close attack, that they will have a 10-inch charge range. And the final thing, I guess, about them is that they are one of the only two factions, I think, that can use generators. So generators are, I guess, non-bot units that just produce energy. That's all they do. They just sit on the board and produce energy. This is also, like, obviously this is a benefit and a bit of an Achilles heel as well, because the generators are very vulnerable to attack, because they have no defenses or anything like that. All they're doing is generating energy. And if you take out those generators, then it really limits the Trash's ability to repair themselves and defend themselves, because they don't have as much energy to spread across their force. So it really is the strategy for taking Trashes down is to remove any generators on the board, using your faster flying units or anything like that, the things that Trashes don't have. So Trashes are fast, but they are foot sloggers. So they can't fly, and it does take them some time to move across the board, even though they might have ram attack. So if you like that sort of force, that just likes an elite force that just runs forward and chops stuff, then Trashes are a great force for you to collect. There's not many models, as I said, and you do have a Titan as well. So I hope you enjoyed this little 10-minute preview of the Trashes, and join me again on this video as I go through each of the BotWar forces and talk about the inspirations and playstyle of each of the forces, and I'll see you guys again. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. See you again.